He was Indian who believed in civil rights, and he didn't believe in and he wanted a nonviolent movement.
All right, 1876. This is the earliest known picture of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi at the age of 7. This is Gandhi's mother. She had a strong spiritual influence on Gandhi.
Can't get on those now.
Set the browser down. Let me help you.
We'll give you a few
What you
seconds.
gotta do?
And we talked about religion earlier between Dr. Martin Luther King, Gandhi's belief, and Malcolm X. Gandhi grew up as a Hindu. Hindus often use fasting in their way of life. Gandhi's mother was a devout Hindu who used to fast regularly. She also took advice from one of their local religious priests. Gandhi's father. His father was a politician. He was involved in the local commerce, business, and trade within the area he grew up in. In fact, he was a prime minister of Porbandar, which is a small princely state in western India. India being the country that Gandhi's from. Again, this is Gandhi, back in 1883 as a teenager. Played sports such as tennis and cricket. Cricket being big in India, and in particular in England. When he lied to his parents or stole from his brother, he felt very guilty. Gandhi at an early age felt and knew what was right and what was wrong, and felt bad about it. Something we all need to think about in our daily lives. He had 2 brothers and 1 sister, but he was the youngest child. Here he's shown his older brother, Laxmides. 1890, which was often the case with people from various continents outside the United States. Individuals would find themselves traveling to England for an education. Gandhi did the same thing. This is the first picture of Gandhi in England. Gandhi also was a lifelong vegetarian, one who doesn't eat beef, pork, turkey. So he believed in a way of life and a philosophy of being a vegetarian. Here again, he's shown on a visit to the Vegetarian Society in a portion of England. Some people didn't know, but Gandhi was a law student. It's a picture in 1891. He trained what they call in England, or in London in particular, to be a barrister, which is the same thing as an attorney, a lawyer, at the Inner Temple in London. In 1895, as a barrister, after a brief period back in India, Gandhi moved to South Africa to practice law. A lot of Indians were located in South Africa. I see on the keyboard. He was retained by a firm of Muslim merchants headed by Dada Abdullah Sheikh, again Indians. In 1885, the Natal controversy in South Africa, he soon became deeply involved in protecting the rights of Indian migrants. Migrants being people that come from India, moving into South Africa. Here he's shown with other members of the Natal Indian Congress. It was a famous war during that time period known as the Boer War. Gandhi formed the Indian Ambulance Corps. Those people who provided assistance to people that were wounded during the war effort. Their unamassing dauntlessness cost them many lives, and eventually an order was published forbidding them to go into the line of fire. This was one of the reporters from a local newspaper, the Johannesburg Illustrated Star. In 1902, with his wife at the time, Kasturba, he married when they were both, how old are you?
11.
You've been 2 years back then from being a grown man with a family. That was a part of the Indian custom and tradition. Gandhi got married when he was 13 years old. Later, Gandhi became a campaigner against the very thing he went through, because it was a part of the custom, a part of the tradition. Gandhi began to campaign against childhood marriage. 13 definitely was too old back then. Definitely too young to be married now. 1902, of course, it's his family with his 4 children, all boys, born at different times. That's his wife and his 4 boys.
Is he so, why is his sons almost taller than him?
Well, sometimes it happens. I'm taller than my dad. My son will probably be taller than me. Genetics, you never know. Gandhi was sometimes subject to physical beatings because he got involved. He was a person that spoke out of things. Back then, it was a custom for people that protested to be made to feel that they had shamed their family, shamed where they were from, and they would be lashed out against. When this photo was taken, he was recovering from a beating at the hands of other Indians who objected to the compromise Gandhi made with the General Smuts regarding the past laws. Again, issues relating to their race and their interaction with people in the area in which he came from. This is a letter to a very famous Russian author, Tolstoy. Tolstoy. I want to tell others what I feel particularly and what to my mind is of great importance, namely that which is called nonviolent resistance, but which is really nothing else but the teaching of love. Nonviolent resistance. Talking about it way back then. M.K. Gandhi, attorney. He wrote it to Leo Tolstoy in Russia. Very famous man. Tolstoy in 1910 had a farm 21 miles from where Gandhi was living. Gandhi's second venture came from trying to have the same type of situation that Tolstoy did. Tolstoy, being a famous Russian author, would have a number of people living around him. He believed in giving up his wealth, and he also believed in having a carefree lifestyle, but in particular, showing people through a non-reactive type of lifestyle, there was love in the world. Gandhi picked up on some of this, and at some point, Gandhi drew a lot of people under him. So when you think about Gandhi, you think about him being an individual person, but Gandhi had 10 to 20, to 30, to 40, to 50 people actually living around him at all times, and they helped make Gandhi the person that he was, and the famous man that we know of him today. And at some point, Gandhi founded what became known as ashrams, the same type of communal living, people living in the same little area with their own farm, being self-sufficient and relying on one another. 1910, many important Indians have become aware of Gandhi's campaigning in South Africa. Here he's shown with Gokhale, a senior leader of the Indian national movement, who became Gandhi's political guru, the man that kind of showed Gandhi how to shape his message in terms of trying to mobilize people, trying to motivate individuals to get a part of his cause, which was the Indian nationalist movement. Indians wanted to have their own countries for themselves, so they could govern, not be subjected to the British rule, something Gandhi worked on. The Transvaal March, very famous, 1913. It's a protest against the ban on Indian immigration and the ruling that only Christian marriages were legal. The British didn't want to recognize Indians in terms of their customs, the way Indians got married, if they practiced their Hindu religion or any other religion outside of Christianity, they were being oppressed, not given that religious and political freedom. Gandhi hoped that the marchers would be sent to jail when they entered the Transvaal. Eventually there was a compromise with the government, and the government, they called themselves the General Smuts. 1913. Satyagraha, which is Gandhi's principle that eventually has been passed on to a number of people as they struggle for the truth. Gandhi called his method Satyagraha, meaning struggle for truth. He was prepared to sacrifice his own well-being in order to change the hearts of his opponents. Because of his belief, Gandhi said, "No, I'm no longer going to wear the clothes that Archivius likes to wear." Archivius, you were talking about my shirt over there, and how I had to copy you. I did, I liked it. Gandhi gave up all European clothing. At some point, he began to sew his own clothing. He believed that the simple dress was appropriate for defending the rights of ordinary Indians. And he wanted to take off anything to remind him of the people that were oppressing, the British. 1915, Gandhi was very successful. His success in South Africa was well known throughout India. In this picture, he's welcomed to Karachi, which is now modern-day Pakistan. Thousands, tens of thousands came out to greet him. This is the classic picture that we knew of Gandhi, 1929. This is the way that he became an icon. Stuck in your mind. This picture shows Gandhi, who had developed in terms of this type of person by the age of 60. By this time, Gandhi had established himself on the Indian political scene and had achieved a number of notable events. The most famous thing that moved Gandhi's country was the 1930 Salt March. Gandhi was very clever at picking his political campaigns. Although the British tax on salt did not raise much money, it became a symbol that was used by Gandhi to show the lack of freedom for Indians in his own country. Making of the salt. Gandhi shown here picking up salt. This is making salt. So Indians couldn't even go out because they had to buy salt. You were not allowed, even though salt was plentiful coming from the ocean, you were not allowed to even harvest salt. If you did as Indian, it was illegal and you could be put in jail. Even today, foreign companies try to prevent Indians using their own natural resources, such as drug companies which try to patent Indian medicinal plants. Roundtable. It seemed that the British government was taking the Indian demands, obviously for independence, very serious. The conference was organized in London, but of course, nothing changed. While in England, in 1931, Gandhi met with the king and the prime minister. He told the reporter, "You people wear +4s. Mine are -4s. Look at his clothes. He's going to meet with the king of England and the prime minister, people that run this major country outside the United States. The U.S. being the largest country in terms of power back then, Great Britain being the second. Kingsley Hall. I find that my work lies outside the conference. Gandhi realized, hey, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm sitting around talking to you guys. You have your suits on. You believe in your power. You think I'm just some little skinny man, barely dressed. You're not taking me seriously. I'll show you. So while in England, Gandhi stayed in the poor East End. The Gandhi Foundation maintains its headquarters in that very same place today. In India, Gandhi had campaigned against the import of cotton cloth from England, again trying to have the notion of independence. This caused many textile workers in England to lose their job. Gandhi wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but he wanted to show England, you need us, and we want our own independence, so we can work together if you allow us to have our own independence. Gandhi visited those people to show solidarity and then show theirs, as you can see. Gandhi went to jail many times in both South Africa and in India, of course, but he used his time in jail to read and study. Whoever has a taste for reading good books is able to bear loneliness in any place with great ease. Forever continue to develop his mind. Nehru. Nehru eventually became the leader of India. Here you see Gandhi had good relations with Nehru, who, as I said, became the Prime Minister of India in 1947. But they had very different beliefs. Nehru was caught up in some of the Western ways of thinking. Gandhi had a whole new way of trying to approach this. Nehru wanted to build up a strong economic industrial power out of buildings. We're going to get there through modernization. We're going to build factories. Gandhi wanted a traditional way of life, a village life. And so they forever were at odds with one another in regards to their philosophies. Who was Adolf Hitler?
Adolf Hitler.
The dictator of Germany.
He seemed as he was a strong man in Germany. He was the leader in the war and of World War. It was war. They were at war, German versus U.S. And so Gandhi Gandhi wanted that to stop.
Okay.
So Adolf Hitler turned out he wasn't such a strong man as they thought he was because he killed himself.
All right.